Please call the roll.
Present.
Hall. Segura.
Here.
Solis.
Present.
Tarantino.
Here.
Aguirre.
Present. This is the point of the agenda where members of the public may address the board on matters posted for the special meeting and in accordance with Government Code Section 54954.3, Section A. The board will provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body concerning any item that has been described in the notice for the meeting before or during consideration of that item. Each person will wishing to address an item on the meeting notice in closed session will have 2 minutes to do so. Excuse me, sorry about that.
There are no speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you. If there's no communication, I will recess the meeting for consideration of the following closed session items as posted on the meeting notice. Student expulsion, suspended expulsions, reinstatements, Education Code Section 48916-48918, students identified by ID number, public employee discipline dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, Government Code Section 54957. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956. Conference with labor negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6. We will now adjourn to closed session. This time, I'd like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board, please call roll.
Arancibia,
Present.
Hall. Segura,
Here.
Solis,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Aguirre,
Present.
Carriaga.
Present.
We will now hold a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance led by our Student Board Representative, Laila Carriaga.
Place your right hand on your heart. Ready, begin.
The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues: student expulsions, suspended expulsions, reinstatements, Education Code Section 48916-48918, students identified by ID number. 2, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, Government Code Section 54957. 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. 4, conference with labor negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6. The board took the following action, moved by Segura, seconded by Hall, to approve the reinstatement of one student with the vote of Arancibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. Moved by Segura, seconded by Hall, to approve the reinstatement of one student with the vote of Arancibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. Moved by Hall, seconded by Segura, to deny the request for leave of absence for one certificated employee with the vote of Arancibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Solis no, Tarantino no. This time I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the August 8th, 2022 regular board meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second.
Carriaga,
Yes.
Arancibia.
Yes.
Hall. Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
We will now have a message from Superintendent Dr. Moises Aguirre.
Thank you, President Solis. Good evening and buenas tardes to everybody. Welcome to our August 8th board meeting. Before I begin, a public service announcement. Just like our school sites, masks are strongly recommended here in the boardroom, so just wanted to make sure I shared that information. This is our welcome back, district edition. We've been back since July 20th, and so far we've been able to navigate this return after all that we've been through for the last couple of years. There have already been a number of student events, including a rendition of Beauty and the Beast at San Isidro High School. Great job. Also, fall sports, including football and field hockey, and girls volleyball and boys water polo are off to a start. So great start to them, and we wish all the teams a great season. Lastly, we continue with accelerating instruction and our transition to lowering our carbon footprint as a school district. You will see later in the agenda how our district is investing in electric vehicles to support our transportation fleet transformation. So with that, that's just a brief snapshot of the meeting to come. And with that, muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. We will now have a report from the Student Board Representative, Ms. Laila Carriaga.
Speaking of welcome backs, last Saturday, August 6th, the BSU, or Black Student Unions, met at the BLAC Welcome Back at Eastlake, where they discussed resources for a successful year, encouraged passions. They had motivational speakers, such as the Chula Vista Police Department. This event was an amazing example of something I want to promote down the line, more school communities and affinities of school groups that students identify with. I know Youth for a Sustainable Future is here, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them and more clubs to provide resources and opportunities for them. I am also a part of multiple clubs, and I see the work that the cabinet puts in, and I know it's challenging, but I really think it's a vital part of the environment that we're trying to create here at the district, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carriaga. Clerk of the Board, will you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
I'm sorry, you skipped public communication?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, this is the point of the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. Pursuant to board bylaw, the board may limit the time for public comment on any single topic to 20 minutes per topic. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the superintendent's office for review and report. Speaker shall refrain from using profanity and shall speak in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation.
The first speaker is Cesar Gomez.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cesar Gomez, and I'm here to speak for myself and from some CTE teachers, but not as part of an organization or an association. First, I want to thank this body for some improvements that have the teachers, as the CTE teachers have received during your tenure. But I must say that we still have a ways to go to reach equity. I want to quote Martin Luther King, as I believe we can all relate to having a dream. Today, I would like to share my dream that all eligible CTE teachers be compensated equally, or just as much as the contracted teachers are compensated. We CTE teachers have been walking a long, tumultuous road to achieve equal rights that teachers have been granted throughout the school district, the contract teachers. We still have many turns to cross that equal finish line to achieve that dream. As we labor and teach and model to our students on a daily basis, we are seeking equality and justice for all CTE teachers. Today, I have that dream that all eligible CTE teachers be granted permanent status, like not probationary. That we get paid a non-conditional prep period, and that we earn a salary schedule that is close, if not at like the contract teachers. That we successfully achieve that dream. How I am treated on campus by my administration holds me to the same standards in rigor as my fellow contracted teachers. When CTE teachers meet with students, parents, and colleagues and administrators and the community, we want to feel that we are valued, that when we walk into a faculty meeting or a PLC, that we can hold our heads up high, knowing that our district and our board members and all treat us with equity and equality. Thank you. That's my dream.
Thank you.
Kate Van Wormer.
Hello, board members. My name is Kate Van Wormer. I go to Otay Ranch High School. I'm in my junior year, and I am this year's president for Youth for a Sustainable Future. Youth for a Sustainable Future was created last year by a bunch of groups of students throughout different schools in our district. Our purpose is to rescue foods that are not being eaten by students and donating them to other school events or people who need these foods. We also rescue organic foods that can be composted, browns that can be composted in our community or our school's compost bins. We, as Otay Ranch High School, Hilltop High, and Bonita High, all student run, we have a total of rescued 4,430 pounds of edible food that has now been that went to community food drives, refugee shelters, and unsheltered or / homeless people. Yfrsf, or Youth for a Sustainable Future, has been very important to me personally because I have seen our school community just grow, our district community grow. Whenever we go to community events in Chula Vista, I see little kids super excited to sort out they're just trash. They're just having a bunch of fun sorting out the browns from the organic foods, from just foods that, you know, people just take for granted. So what we would like to do is continue doing this and being able to rescue our foods and keep on doing what we have been doing and preventing food waste at our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea, I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your last name. Come on up.
Hello, board members. My name is Andrea. Thank you guys so much for your time here today. I attend Hilltop High School, and I'm the second-year president of Youth for Sustainable Future, otherwise known as Yfrsf. So the reason I did start and help contribute to Yfrsf is just I wanted to see that education that comes regarding climate change grow in the community, and I really have seen that impact with our club, whether it be teachers getting involved and asking questions during lunch to students who are willing to volunteer their time every single lunch and after school to help sort our foods. As Kate mentioned, we do get rescue foods, and as you guys know, obviously, this is your job. You guys work in the education field, but all California students are now eligible for free lunch, which is amazing regardless of income. But with that, there's a requirement to take a fruit for every single lunch for health reasons, obviously. And with that, we have a lot of fruit that's just going to waste. We have a lot of produce that's being wasted on a daily basis. And seeing that truly breaks my heart and breaks a lot of students' heart. So with all the pounds of food we've been able to divert, we've been able to donate directly back into the community, which has not only had a positive impact on the community, but on students, knowing they're being able to contribute to their own communities. As well as we already have on-site composting set up, and we host compostings every 2 weeks on Fridays, and it's an open invite to everyone who's willing to come. It's not just to students who are already volunteered or in the club, because again, we're really looking to lay that educational foundation for all students to not only be able to do this at school, but in their home. With SB, I think it's 1338, it is a law that we now compost our food. We all got the flyers in our mail saying, this is what goes in the green bin, this is what goes to waste. Students are gonna have to take that education home, and I'd rather they receive it in schools where it's safe to ask these questions, to have these educated conversations, and be able to bring that to their parents and then continue that onto their daily lives. All my volunteers keep asking when we're gonna start up again, so I would really appreciate and kind of put a little bit of a rush on this if that's possible. Thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you.
Destiny Jones?
I'm Destiny Jones, and I'm the vice president of Yfrsf at Hilltop High School. And as Andrea said, that we have grew significantly in our members at Yfrsf, and we've created a bond with people throughout the years that is going to keep help building the program. And even though it's a small club, such as and small events such as putting your food in the bin, it also creates a significant impact with the reduction of methane that's going into our landfills and all the food in there. Methane, we need to pay attention to the emissions of methane just as well as reducing the carbon footprint, because methane is just as dangerous, and it's 80% more toxic as carbon. And I think we should focus on that and try to get the club started as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maya Lofney?
Hello and good evening. My name is Maya Lofney, and I'm a senior at Bonita Vista High School. I'm also the president of our environmental club and a leader for the Youth for Sustainable Future composting program. I'm here today to explain why it's important for our program to continue. To state some statistics, according to the World Wildlife Fund report, U.S. schools are estimated to have food waste totals of 530,000 tons per year. Much of the food that is thrown away every day is perfectly edible. These can include uneaten apples, oranges, carrots, dried fruits, and even entire cafeteria meals. Through our composting program, we are able to collect this food and donate it to the homeless or people in need. We are also able to collect food scraps, which we then compost. Within just the first 6 months of 2022, Youth for a Sustainable Future was able to save 5,476 pounds of food from going to the landfills at just 3 of our participating schools. Decomposing food creates large amounts of methane and CO2 in the atmosphere. This is a major factor of the Earth's current environmental distress and climate chaos. This is by composting, we are able to prevent 3,701 pounds of CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions this past 6 months. We as the youth are the future. We have the power to make a change in this world, and it starts today. The Youth for a Sustainable Future is providing an outlet for environmental justice and services to the community for young individuals. This program has opened my eyes to the impact we as students can make. It has given me the platform to educate others and bring awareness on a pressing issue in and out of the classroom. Not only is the program impacting our school positively, but also our entire community. I have found passion within this project, and I want to continue to make a difference. To make our world more livable, we have to make a change that starts with you and me. Thank you for listening, and I hope to continue to make a difference.
Thank you.
Mika Alcantara.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mika, and I'm a senior at Bonita Vista High School. And I'm currently a lead for the Youth for Sustainable Futures program at my school. I am happy to be working with a program that once started with just a woman and a dream to make the world more sustainable. How our neighborhood plan can grow into a large-scale project that has stretched out to several schools in the Sweetwater district. And I believe that our program is only expanding from here. I've had a number of great experiences working with Yfrsf, and I would usually collect uneaten fruit, sort waste with my friends, and practice a zero-waste lifestyle, all during my own lunch hours. And I've honestly really enjoyed going around the school with my friends and interacting with my other classmates. But my favorite part of the whole experience is going home and telling my parents what I did at school. It's honestly amazing to educate my classmates on how to be sustainable, but I especially like how I can educate my own parents on zero waste methods that we can adopt in our own home. My mother would often communicate with her family from abroad that live in the Philippines and catch up with each other. Once she told them about the waste sorting and the recycling I've done, and it was honestly shocking to hear that they find recycling out of the ordinary. There are many cities in the Philippines that are made up of majority of trash, and the sad reality is that many families live in these cities that are full of waste. For example, the Payata dump in the Philippines is the largest dump in Manila, and it is a city made up of 12 million people. And I imagine that if we don't start making a sustainable future, imagine how long that our home can start looking like that. Using this program, we can create and develop change to benefit all and the place where we live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Beal.
Sorry, I have to lower this. Wow, what a great start to the school year, huh? How about that internet? It's fantastic. On July 27th, I emailed to each board member to make you aware of the chaos that counselors returned to, specifically the lack of communication and guidance on the California grad plan, which ultimately resulted in frustration for students, parents, and counselors. Although this communication failure ultimately resulted in additional work for counselors, that wasn't the primary reason for the frustration. It was once again the lack of respect being shown towards counselors. The district, in its sound communication strategy, didn't feel it appropriate or necessary to provide counselors with written policy or procedures regarding the California grad plan option, but they did feel it appropriate to inform parents of the option and then encourage them to speak with their student's counselor. The district didn't even think to provide counselors a copy of the communication being sent to parents, and instead counselors were blindsided when parents showed up with a copy of the communication. Counselors, not the highly paid district administrators charged with establishing, monitoring, and implementing instructional vision, listened to parents with empathy and addressed their genuine concerns despite the fact that they lacked necessary and essential information from their employers. On Friday, July 29th, I made you aware of ongoing internet issues, still continuing, that were preventing counselors from once again doing their jobs and serving students. Prior to emailing you, I asked IT if there were issues with Infinite Campus. The response I received was, "We've been experiencing issues all week." Given that counselors were working to meet a deadline for balancing, didn't the district think it necessary to inform counselors of these internet issues? Or is that still a part of the sound communication strategy? Better yet, is that what's meant by an LCAP 4, Goal 4, developing coherent and transparent systems for operational success to support each student's success? Whatever it is, it needs to be done better. As president of SCGA, please know that I'm fully committed to ensuring that all counselors are treated with respect, feel valued and supported, and have the tools necessary and information necessary to effectively perform their jobs of serving students and our families. I personally don't think that that's too much to ask for. Along with supporting SDGA members in their ability to do their job, my responsibility also includes fiscal oversight to ensure that all resources are being allocated appropriately to provide direct services to students to the fullest extent possible. We all know that when governmental agencies have reckless spending habits, students ultimately receive less services. As I reviewed tonight's agenda, primarily the dollar amounts being spent, I couldn't help but wonder, are we currently using our funds in a way that will result in the best services for students? How are we measuring the effectiveness of these continued expenses? All questions that I will continue to ask not only tonight, but throughout the school year. Questions that both parents, other staff members, and taxpayers at large should be asking as well. Remember, these are public funds, not our own personal piggy banks.
Thank you.
Kathleen Cheers.
Good evening. I would like to begin by complimenting the following employees for getting back to me so quickly on agenda items that I had planned on pulling. The following: Ms. Carbuccia, Dr. Moore, and Ms. Quirk. I had planned comments tonight, but I'm going to put those on the back burner, instead acknowledging the eloquent and insightful information that the students shared this evening. You know, in a world where all we hear is about negative stories about youth and inundated on the future of this country, it is clear that our teachers and our committed students are going to change the world. And Dr. Aguirre, I think it would be exemplary if you would send each one of these speakers tonight some type of recommendation, commendation on how well they spoke and on the topics that they spoke, so that they could use it to put in their dossiers for their college careers. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nick Marinovich.
Good evening. I guess you've heard of good cop, bad cop. I guess I'm the bad cop on this non-agenda public comment. I hope not. And I do realize that the board and kind of not been really listening, I don't think, to what I've been saying. But that's okay. What I'm hoping is that there's 3 people out there that listen to what I'm saying and say we need some change in Sweetwater. You know, South Bay is undergoing rapid change, as you can see, with the Gaylord development starting, some talk of a university. One of the key critical elements of future growth and attracting people to this part of the county is the quality of its public schools. And I can tell you, you know, I talk to people in the community, I talk to people, former employees who've been away for years, and I tell them, you know what, it's kind of back to the same old Sweetwater way. And they say, I've heard that. Okay, so, you know, get out from under the rock and crawl up and smell the roses. You know, I just, you know, and I don't like having to say these things. Believe me, if anybody knows me personally, this is not me. It doesn't matter what I want or don't want. What matters is the student. And what I really want to emphasize now, to kind of pivot to the bond program, it's crazy, not effective in terms of at least the oversight function. If you move forward with spending that money you're going to borrow in the near future, you've got to have a comprehensive physical condition assessment, soup to nuts, up to date on every single school. You've got to make sure before you do an L Street defeasance, inquire and get you out of that bad economic deal, you've got to know what really needs to be done now to make these schools safe, habitable, and friendly to the students. Secondly, have you told the public what is your real priority process for funding projects? How did you end up with L Street defeasance on there? Did you tell the public, hey, you know what we really want to do? We want to set in motion the process. And I hope I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Please send me an email. Tell me. Sometimes you're getting forward to do a new district office. And let's face it, your district office sucks. But there's a lot of other things that also suck too more than the district office. That is the quality of the physical facilities these students have to, or just ask the parents of Castle Park. So in closing, I'm just hoping that there could be people that will listen to what I'm saying and realize there needs to be dramatic change in how we do business in this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right, Clerk of the Board, would you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes, the following items are pulled. F3 by Dr. Arencibia, staff and the public. F6 by the public. F7 by the public. G5 by Mr. Tarantino. G8 by the public. G12 by the public. H2 by the public. H4 by the public. H5 by the public. K1 by the public. K7 by staff and the public. L1 by Mr. Tarantino and the public. M2 by the public. And O3 by Mr. Segura.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do you have a motion and a second?
Cariaga?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall? Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, F3.
I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
On December 13th, 2021, Board Member Tarantino requested a report on the progress of programs related to equity and anti-racial issues. Mr. Tarantino, I 100% agree and think that most parents and staff would agree as well. Rather than continue to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in consultant agreements for experts in the field of equity and culture, roughly $235,000 on tonight's agenda alone, shouldn't we, the public, be provided an update on the effectiveness of all the prior investments and their efficacy before spending another $235,000? Don't we have at least one highly paid district administrator who's paid to plan, align, develop, implement, direct, and evaluate the equity and culture program for students? Are we seeing improved outcomes? The district has a responsibility to evaluate the effectiveness of strategies and programs being implemented before we spend $250,000 on consultants. I mean, that's kind of why we have the innovation office and the whole research and evaluation team, right? If these programs are not yielding positive outcomes, then shouldn't we pivot and try something else after a defined period of time? We shouldn't continue to commit more dollars until we see the progress of these programs and consultants. Mr. Tarantino, I too look forward to seeing the report requested.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
Dr. Arancibia?
Yeah, I just wanted to correct the terminology. I think it is equity and anti-racist issues. I think that's the term, or anti-racism as issues, not anti-racial. That's an incorrect terminology for using this particular word. So I just wanted to make sure that if we're going to continue using this term, it's either anti-racist or anti-racism, but it can't be anti-racial.
Dr. Aguirre?
Thank you, President Solis. We'll have conversations with relevant staff.
Great.
Okay, thank you. And
With that, I'll move, yeah. As I'm, if we could get it amended, I'll move to approve.
This is actually the board requests.
sorry,
So,
my
I mean, you can
apologies,
make a
my apologies.
motion when
I'm
everybody's
spaced
had
out.
their
I
opportunity to,
Okay,
yes.
sounds good. Thank you, Dr. Arancibia. Anybody else? Mrs. Vice President Holm?
Thank you. I'm having a little difficulty hearing, so I just wanted to make sure this is F3, where the board gives their own report to the public.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct? Yes. All right. So I'd like to begin tonight. Thank you, President Solis. I'd like to begin tonight by giving a report from our Audit and Finance Subcommittee meeting that occurred on July 18th. At the request, we first appointed the chair for this year, and based on the motion from Trustee Segura, I will continue as the chair of the board audit and finance subcommittee. We started the meeting with a presentation on external audit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is there, I keep hearing something interrupting. I'm not sure if that was me or what. So we started with the external audit. We had a presentation by the Crow audit team that gave a status of the district financial audit, Propo financial and performance audit, as well as the new state required school facility program audit, and the work conducted to date and timeline of the remaining work. Partners met with the Propo Oversight Committee chair to share the plan and to share their plan for the Propo performance and financial audit. And they received his input, answered questions regarding those of the related audits. They also focused on the field work during May 16th through the 20th of 22. The field work by the team was on site visits, which included Granger and Rancho Del Rey Middle Schools, Montgomery and Southwest High School, Palomar Continuing Education, and various sites as they related to independent studies. Audit areas completed as of July 18th included planning and risk assessment, attendance accounting and reporting, continuing education, instructional materials, comprehensive school safety plan, school accountability report card, educator effectiveness, associated student body walkthroughs. Kevin Smith, managing partner, noted that from testing conducted so far, no significant areas of concern or major deficiencies have been identified. And we all know that that is very important for our district. Work will continue through August and will include planning and risk assessment, federal compliance with state compliance, as well as the bond and facility audit. October field work will continue, and the Crow audit team anticipate completing work to be ready and to present full reports to the trustees at regular December 12, 2022 board meeting. It's important to note that the limitations embedded in the existing finance system still exist, and while there are currently no major deficiencies identified, there is still likely to be a deficiency noted until the new Infor system is implemented. The team from Crow also recognized the tremendous work done by district staff last year to bring the audit to a timeline that aligns with legal requirements. A note from the chair, the Crow team has performed all work in accordance with professional auditing standards. Our board approved last April a 2-year contract extension with Crow, which will be completed, which will end at the end of 2023. Other external audits included the California Public Employees Retirement System review of pay schedules and pay rates, and a finalized report from that entity was issued in May of 2022. That is included in the audit agenda items, and it also, from what they reviewed, there continues to be a tremendous amount of work needed to complete all the adjustments and work to online for corrections to the records of several employees. Staff is working diligently on that, and we were assured by Dr. Sawfeld that the results of that work will be to the benefit of the employee expected. The last external audit came from, was related to nutrition services. The County and the County of San Diego Health and Human Services received the adult and child and adult nutrition program, meal program that was new to us it might have happened midway through 2020, but it was new to a new resource. And due to the funds that were allotted for that program. It continues. This is a new department to handle that, but that will continue. And staff has assured us that they will be diligent to procure the correct amount of food and utilize the funds as we need. The last thing that was given was a future audit from the California Department of Education, a notification of the cycle of on-site federal program monitoring, which will occur in March, or they'll be out on December 12th to the 16th of this year. And they will be visiting sites that they will monitor at Montgomery Middle, Montgomery High, and Castle Park High. We know that the same review last year with other schools resulted in no funding, so we're very sure that that will continue and we look forward to this meeting. The rest of the meeting focuses on our internal audit, and I want to give kudos to the staff of the internal auditing department. They have done a tremendous amount of work to not only establish very clear and good methods for auditing, not just ASD, but they also performed audits on the time certification that staff submit, as well as the instructional minutes that are reported every year for our district. All these things are really key for making sure the internal controls established by the district are followed and are monitored and result in really a sound check and balance for our fiscal health. And I want to commend them for that. I believe what they completed were 11 audits. Those ones for the AC were based on the 2020 year and through the next year, through April of 2021. They do have several findings for each of the schools. Mainly, as you know, schools were closed due to COVID that year, and there were significant challenges to staff being able to complete appropriate spend down. please coming forward. They know that government is not full. They know schools, but there are people that may need more or have relish the opportunity to continue building on what they gained in school. And this is a great opportunity. So look, there's announcements online and at the schools, so you can sign up. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vice President Hall. Anybody like to go next?
Sure.
Mr. Segura, thank you.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. I see what I attended the San Diego. I got invited by business representative of the roofers and waterproofers, business representative Paul Colmanero, who's actually a teacher for us at the adult ed. And they had their apprentice graduation last Saturday, and they had it. They had about 30 apprentices receive their journey level card, which is a big deal. So it was a nice event, small event, but it was very nice nonetheless. And that's a very important card that they have now that these roofers and waterproofers have, because now they're in the eyes, they're trained and state certified by the state of California, and that's a real big deal. And I'm glad that we work with them at our district to get them through that program. And I thank him for all that he does. He has a small union, so he does everything. And I really truly appreciate that, and I really enjoyed going there. Also, we had a follow-up meeting with the superintendent, the principal of Castle Park High School, Janaea, and our communications director of communications, and we just had a follow-up to our meetings, a previous meeting we had at Castle Park, and we did a walk of the school site, and there's been a lot of cleaning, blasting, and when I went, there was still some, when I went previously, there was still some gum on the ground. They hadn't had a chance to clean yet because it was going through summer school and it was in high use. So since then, they've spent a lot of time, the maintenance team, I'm not sure who actually does the blasting, but they did a lot of work. The landscapers had been there working on weed abatement around the hill, around the school itself. And they were working very hard, and I just wanted to thank everybody who has contributed to improving that campus. And I know there's a lot of that work exists at a lot of the other schools, and they can't stay there forever, but I truly appreciate that. There's been a lot of improvement there, and making that a priority, and I really appreciate that. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segura. Mr. Tarantino?
Thank you, President Solis. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Yfrsf Murgola from Montgomery High School for being selected to participate in the UT Community Scholars Program for 2022. She is one of 6 students selected countywide to participate in this opportunity. So congratulations, Yfrsf. I'd like to thank the BLAC student leaders and the organizing committee for sponsoring the 2nd annual African American Family Back to School Festival. It was held last Saturday at Eastlake High School. I'd also like to thank Dr. Rick Cook for having Eastlake High School host the event. I would like to request that we provide certificates of recognition to the student leaders and organizing committee, as well as Dr. Cook for their dedication and time devoted to sponsoring and putting on this event. I'd like to highlight Hilltop High teacher David Kerr and his students for their window painting endeavor at Hilltop High School. It was featured in an article in yesterday's Union Tribune, and very, very good way to earn money for things that the students need. So I'm glad that that's going on, and hopefully it'll be contagious and catch at other schools. I do have some requests. First of all, based on what the students from YSF were commenting on, it gave me the impression that there's something we need to do in order to have them sustain this club, and that's not my recollection of how clubs work. It's all sponsored through the schools. So if we could get some clarification on what our role would be in order to promote this, at not only the 3 schools that are currently have clubs, but also throughout the district. Also, now that summer school is over, I think it's important that the board receive a report on how effective summer school was in terms of attendance, credits earned by students, and all of those things that go along with summer school, so like that we can use that data to plan for next summer. Probably everyone saw the Rory Devine piece on, I forget what station she's with, but anyway, on the bus issues that we're currently having. And the thing that raised a concern for me was one of the students who were interviewed said that she is being docked for being tardy because the buses are late. And I don't know that that is a justifiable thing to have the students who are, through no fault of their own, being penalized for being tardy when the buses are not on time. So if district leadership could work with principals and the teachers in order to see that students are not penalized for being tardy for things that are not within their control. Also, there seems to be, to follow up on what President Beal said, there seems to be a lot of confusion about the California grad plan. My understanding of what the board passed was that for the class of 2023, we were going to have the Sweetwater grad plan, and then there was going to be a process to appeal and have the California grad plan in place. Because it was early in the process, we didn't get the process of what had to be done in order to apply for this, whose responsibility was it to oversee it. And so now that the plan has been, I guess, certified, I'd like that information. What is the process in terms of who applies for the California grad plan? Is it parents? Is it students? Is it their counselor? And who is the oversight? If that's a district responsibility, a principal responsibility, I just like to know the process, because we were not given the process because it had not been formulated at the time that we passed that. That's my recollection. If discovery shows that I'm wrong, just let me know, okay? And then one of the other things that I asked for, I believe it was in May, that there were a number of teachers, special ed teachers, who came from Otay Ranch High School, who came and spoke to the board and raised some concerns about parents and faculty being bullied and retaliated against. And I asked if we could have some kind of insight into who was responsible. Is it at the site level? Is it at the district level? Is it at both levels? And what is being done, if in fact those allegations prove to be true, what is being done to curtail that behavior? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Vice President Halt, did you have another comment?
Yes, I forgot. Thank you, President Solis, for your patience. I forgot to ask for a couple of takeaways from the Audit and Finance Subcommittee. I think Mr. Trustee Segura had asked that we have an update on the implementation of the Informe system and I forget what else, the update, but I think that's important and I also have been getting some concerns from different sources about people are concerned about school safety and school climate right now. So I would request perhaps that Dr. Aguirre, that you would work with our staff and principals to hold community forums that are in our areas I know it can't be done overnight and there's a lot going on, but if you could work to really hold kind of a listening meeting for each community area, that would be really important for them to provide you input on what they perceive as the good things, but also some issues that they may feel are need to be addressed, and that we could provide some takeaways that way, and maybe provide some action steps, but also a way to communicate the great things, because there are so many wonderful things happening in our districts, and I think we need to shine a light on that whenever possible. So that is my request, and I apologize for not bringing it up sooner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice President Hill. With regards to Dr. Aracibia, Ms. Becerro, how should we go about that?
This is a report item only, so staff can follow up and make that change if necessary.
Okay, so no need for us to do any
You don't
action.
need to take a
Okay,
vote, no.
perfect, thank you. All right, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody for the start of the school year. It's been some rough patches, but thank you for all the hard work, and I know it's a quick turnaround to end the school year and then start a new school year. So thank you for all that you do. Okay. All right, with that, we'll move on to F6.
Yes, I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
There no sound?
Oh, go ahead.
For those of you who are hoping for an early release, sorry. Tonight's agenda includes over $80,000 in settlement agreements paid to families out of special services. Mind you, roughly 64,000 of those are as of July 1st of this school year. As well, later in the agenda, we see the addition of 2 paralegals being added on staff, which I can only assume are to help process all these continued settlement agreements we continue to pay to families. Now, I might be totally out in left field, but wouldn't our dollars be better spent hiring more staff, sped teachers, therapists, aides, counselors, psychologists to provide the students with the services they're entitled to, rather than continue to pay settlement agreements and hire more paralegals to process them? I'm curious to understand what the district is currently doing to correct these deficiencies which have resulted in the continued settlement agreements. We're all aware that the district currently has a large number of sped teaching vacancies. What's being done currently to ensure that some of our most in-need students are currently getting actual teaching and not just substitutes in the classroom? I think it was you, Mr. Tarantino, who previously asked, when positions are eliminated or left unfilled, are our program managers getting down and dirty in the trenches to ensure our students get the services they need? I can tell you at one of my sites right now, there are 2 teachers. One is a vacancy. Now, these are some of the most at-risk students with the greatest social emotional needs. One is a vacancy and has had a sub since day 1. The other teacher's on her way out, so those kids will get a sub again. Again, mind you, these are some of the most at-risk students with the highest social emotional needs. I think we really need to try to do better.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
Questions or comments from the board? If no comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion
I'll second.
and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
F7.
I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
Ms. Carbuccia, I think F7 is something that you and I can agree on. That's a direct result of what can be achieved through positive and respectful collaboration by both parties, which doesn't always come easy for you and I. So I just want to say thank you for your collaboration on this item.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Oh, sorry, is there any more?
No further speakers.
Apologies.
Make a motion for approval of
Okay, we have a
F7.
motion
Second.
and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
G8.
I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
This particular item includes approving an expenditure of $36,000 to the Ken Blanchard Group. So again, we go back to our consultant agreements, we go back to the payouts and settlements. Now we've got $36,000 here, so we're up to what, like 300 or maybe 351,000, close to $500,000. So it's to provide mentoring and coaching, and they are allegedly experts in the area of mentoring and coaching. So these are supposed to provide mentors and coaches for aspiring administrators. My understanding is that we have a program manager who has oversight of the Educator Effectiveness Grant, which is the exact funding source of this item. His supervisor is a Chief of Systems Improvement and Innovation, and that individual is charged with providing leadership and strategic direction for all efforts to support and evaluate our people, processes, and organization through professional learning, and develops strategic goals for and implements the professional growth programs for management staff. So why do we need the Ken Blanchard Group? My question tonight is, when did we decide that we needed to outsource mentoring and coaching for our aspiring administrators and current administrators, as this is something that we used to do internally? The district is currently overrun with chiefs, administrators, and managers, some of them even on special assignment. Since the administrator on special assignment is already being paid, maybe we save $36,000 and have that person be the mentor coach. I just find it hard to believe that we don't have people on staff with enough experience to mentor internally. Or is it that the superintendent and board are not confident in their manager's ability to mentor and coach? I'd like to share with you what happens in counseling when a new counselor comes on board. When a new counselor comes on board to the site, we don't have consultants being paid to coach and mentor. We, the existing counselors, are the coaches and mentors. The other counselors at the site become the new counselors' mentors and help train them, all while still completing their own duties. So yes, it can be done internally. And imagine that, I just saved you $36,000.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
So,
Mr. Segura?
yeah, I'm sorry there, Mr. President. So can you just give us, I believe I've seen, and I read the, I can't click onto it, but I read the contract, and I do remember, I believe I remember this coming through before, so just kind of what exactly we're getting for these $36,000.
Sure thing. Thank you, Trustee Segura, for this one. Since it came from Dr. Winter's office, I'll ask Dr. Winters to elaborate.
Good evening. Thank you. And the Blanchard contract is supporting our Aspiring Administrator program. So they're going to provide training for both the mentors and the mentees throughout the school year. One of the goals of educator effectiveness is to build capacity of leaders and teachers and counselors throughout the district. So this is one of many different ways in which we're going to invest in our people so we can strengthen their skills. And so while we do have expertise across the district, providing this additional time and support for this particular group, we feel is very beneficial in building their capacity for current and future leaders.
Thank you. You know, I support this. I know if this was a corporation that we're sitting at, we'd have probably like 50 more people in this room doing this job. We're not a corporation. We're limited with you know, with what we have and what we can work for. And sure, we always want more, you know, in terms of teachers and administrators, but we only have a set amount of dollars. And as we all know, we can get caught up in, you know, hiring more, and then we're, you know, having to possibly reduce and all that. And that's a discussion in itself, though, in terms of how we do things around here. And but I get this, and I will make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, and I apologize for skipping G5, Mr. Tarantino. So we're going to go back to G5. Mr. Tarantino.
Yes. I have a question about the couple of things. First of all, what kinds of tests are we talking about? Are we talking about AP tests? Are we talking about classroom tests, end of course exams? What kind of tests will be highlighted in this issue? How how will this be accessed by students? Who is going to be responsible for letting the students know that there is a bank of practice tests for various tests that are available? And I also noticed that in the body of the contract, there is staff development for the teachers. So what teachers are going to be assigned to? I don't know. I don't know exactly what their role is going to be. If it's a bank of test preps, practice tests, I don't know what the role of the teachers is going to be. But what department is going to be focused on? And who's going to be responsible for bringing this to the students' attention, the student and parent attention? Those are the questions I have about this.
Thank you, President Solis. For this one, I'll ask Dr. Alvarez to elaborate on this item. Dr. Alvarez.
Good evening, Dr. Aguirre, Mr. Tarantino, board members, and the public. So SHMOOP has been a software online program that we've utilized at least for the last 8 years. And so our staff and our teams are very entrenched in the use of the program. It is a multi-purpose program. It does have some diagnostic exams. It also has test prep in the content areas, as well as for AP for the advanced placement courses. Most of our users in the district are AP teachers that utilize it. And so students have the ability to go on. The teachers are trained. That training we used to do in-person professional development. Now it's online and it's even more personalized. So for example, if I'm a teacher and I'm having some difficulties in arranging or organizing how I'm going to utilize it, I can have a one-on-one coach walk me through it online and help me with the preparation. So we have that ability. We also have the ability to provide more formalized professional development. In the past, we also provided training to our counselors, or at least an overview of the program to the counselors so that they would know how SHMOOP was being used for some diagnostics, some test prep, and also for helping students kind of in a tutorial environment. So it's used across the district. We have 8,000 licenses that are procured each year. When we first started, we had a much higher level of a contract, and as we looked and analyzed of the use, we've now streamlined it to those 8,000 users. We do have teachers that use it every single day as part of their curriculum and additional supports. In terms of how parents and students are offered that is through the teacher. The teacher provides it through their online portal. They have that information. There is also a parent portal that gives an overview and a description of the courses and how students can access it and how they can help with homework and other additional online resources.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I'll move approval.
Okay, I have a motion
Second.
and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall? Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, G12.
I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
In reviewing the presentation, there are some specific clarifications that should be noted. Please note this is not in any way, shape, or form an attempt to side bargain, but rather provide the general public with the appropriate information. On 1.4, reduction of counselor caseload, portion of counselor and additional FTE for AVA, OSS, and Palomar. Majority of the counselors are maintaining a caseload of 360-1, and yes, the district has agreed to continue to use ESSERS funds to keep counselors whole at a school site, which ultimately results in continuity of services for students and is the intention of ESSERS funds to provide opportunities to address the impacts of lost instructional time, which would include counseling, therapy for mental health, additional instruction minutes, tutoring to improve learning outcomes. Again, this is a result of positive collaboration. Where this statement is a little misleading is in regards to specific schools mentioned. Palomar High School by contract has 2 counselors assigned, no additional FTEs for counselors at Palomar High School. OSS had a full-time counselor but was reduced, and although that counselor is still assigned to OSS, this counselor also has added duties and supports for additional schools. So not necessarily an increase in the FTE, but an increase in schools and ultimately students served by this counselor. AVA has also had a full-time counselor, but much like OSS, was reduced and had 5 schools added to their caseload. Again, not side bargaining, just wanting to identify the corrections as the current reading of it, 1.4 misleads that we gave extra FTEs there. 1.11, district counselors on special assignment. Given that the district decided to cut 1 district COSA, I'm not sure that the 2 remaining COSAs are able to provide services as described in 1.11 to the full extent, as it's my understanding, bless you, that many of the duties of the eliminated COSA have now shifted to the remaining COSAs. 2.3, 2.10, 2.11. These items speak a lot to professional growth opportunities for counselors working with foster and homeless youth, students with disabilities, etc. Specifically skills to create inclusive environments inside and outside the classroom connected to resources. I'm not really sure this has been happening as the counselors have continued to request training in all of these areas. So maybe this is where we reevaluate the $235,000 and see if we can get the counselors some more training for the areas that they're requesting.
No further speakers.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
So I have a question there. Mr. President, so on the title page, and if we could find it in the actual document, 7, so number 7 there, it says CTE pathway development. Can we look to see where that's at in the actual, I read some items on there, or somebody tell me exactly what that means.
Dr. Aguirre?
Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, Trustee Segura and President Solis. I'll ask Dr. Alvarez to provide some clarification. Dr. Alvarez.
So one of the areas that we've addressed in the past, we changed the CTE teachers to have a prep period at least once a week, which was something that they did not have in the previous iterations. The CTE development affords us some additional time for the CTE teachers to have prep periods so that they can look at how we're vertically articulating our CTE pathways within the school site and also with our middle schools. So it gives additional time to our CTE teachers. It also helps us augment our programs and create new pathways based on student interests. So those are one of the elements that we've included with the additional carryover that we had from the previous year, which was a little bit over $13 million, and it will be attributed to that.
Okay. Just to follow up on that, so, because, that's always been very important to me, the CTE pathways that we provide, and we've heard Mr. Gomez, here before, and I know we've been able to do a prep period, but we're not able to, unless we, the funding with, and I learned that when I became a board member, is how, the CTE program is funded and their grants, and that's, to me, that's very frustrating, because it's, we get these experts in, and then they get all their certifications and all the stuff they need to do, right, to be the teachers, and then they leave, and then we're having to start again, and I've seen that happen, and it just seems, that's super frustrating, and I just don't see, where we need to do better somehow, in terms of advocating for the money, so that we could do more, or we do more with it now that we have the money, and then just try to figure out how we're going to get more money to continue it, and we obviously let the people know that whoever we would hire, that's definitely an outcome. But I just think we could do better with that, and I have nothing against college. I'm paying a lot of money for a daughter going to college right now, and she's doing really well. But not all kids are going to go to college right out of high school, and I see us just kind of like a machine in a factory, just trying to churn out as many college eligible students or college students as possible right out of high school, when a lot of and maybe in like Torrey Pines area and maybe in the east side a little bit, they'll have a higher number of students going, but not all of our students, especially in this area or in Castle Park, are going to go right to high school, right out of high school, because they have to work to like support their families. And maybe they go to high school or they go to college a few years later, you know, or I just, you know, just think we could do more and just really, you know, emphasize the, you know, the value of CTE like we do AP courses, just like, you know, we could do better, I think. And that's, I don't know how we do that or how we get to that. But it's just, you know, something that when I read that and I was reading through this documents that came to my, came into my thinking. And, you know, we have completer, you know, and I like to actually see, and I know some of it's in there, in terms of, you know, the percentages of completers of the programs, the different CTE programs. I kind of like to get a presentation on not only that, like how many students are we at all the high schools and wherever in the junior schools, high schools are taking it, how many are completing it, what our goals are for that. Are we just, you know, I know there's goals in there because I read them, but I would like to see just like a condensed version of that so that we could see what's happening there and what our goals are, and maybe set goals. Like, okay, so many there's, just say, for example, 1,000 students are taken. Do we want to try to make it 1,100 the following year? And then and the same thing could be said for the ELD reclassification. You know, see what those numbers are at each school, and then set a goal for that, you know, as well as AP courses and SPED goals, you know, with our students, just so we have some goals, so we could have some more in-depth conversations around our student outcomes and the student learning that's happening at our campuses. So I would like to see that, you know, come before us, because I know over the last few years we spent our whole lives on the budget and everything that's been happening around our district. And I know things have been happening, and there's a lot of success stories out there in terms of our students and what they're completing. I just think that if we could have, you know, a more in-depth conversation around that and setting goals yearly and I know there's goals being set, like I said, because it's in there and I read it, but that the board could see, chew on, think that's high enough, or because we're gonna do well in some things or maybe not so well in others, and that's okay. But as long as we're trying to do things and make it, you know, better for our students, I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segura. Dr. Aguirre?
Thank you, President Solis. Thank you for that, Trustee Segura. I think as we move forward, definitely we've been in a place where we've been kind of in a Maslow, i.e. survival, and trying to really focus on the basics. And now as we're coming out to the next phases, which is going from pandemic to endemic of what we're facing, I think that's very timely, and that's actually where this is part of that conversation. It's not the totality. So we are preparing some plans to bring to the board so that the board can see what those plans are with some of the additional one-time funds we have received from the state. This is in essence kind of our efforts to fund what we have agreed to in terms of CTE. That does not mean it's the end-all be-all, and those conversations do continue. So again, we just want to make sure we're strategic and long-term in our planning and our thinking, because again, as you mentioned, there's the short term, there's the midterm, and the long term, and we want to make sure that we appropriately identify the funding to make sure that we can bring our planning in a way that's sustainable over the long term. We don't want to do something and then find out 2 years later it was based on one-time funding and it goes away. So that's part of the strategy. I'll ask our team to prepare a presentation that we can bring to the board. So I'll ask Dr. Alvarez to lead that. It's very timely to have this conversation around our goals and how do we move our academics forward.
And I think that this is one of those conversations that we've been continuing to have in terms of, we're moving out of the pandemic and out of the economic crisis. So coming back to instruction, right? It's circling back to instruction. What are the metrics that we're using with regards to instruction? We talked about educational leaders on campuses, but I mean, what are the metrics again? And I think that's what
Yes, sir.
my colleague here is, my fellow board member is bringing up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Segura, because I know CSBA is actively going to be looking into advocating for more funding for CTE this coming year. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions or comments? Just an update.
There is no action on this. It's just an update because of the San Diego County Office of Education feedback and then the incorporation of the carryover with those
Wonderful.
items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to H2. H2, pulled by the public.
Yes, I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
While I'm always a fan of direct services for at-risk youth, here's another program that at the conclusion should be evaluated for the effectiveness. For example, were there fewer kids with depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation? Were more students referred to school counselors? As a result of participation in this program, did more students feel a need to self-refer to school counselors? All important questions because we need to know the impact these programs have on the school counselors so that they can adequately prepare to provide these students with necessary services while continuing to complete our contractual duties, which, by the way, is why we should always include school counselors in discussions when entering into MOUs that include school counselors.
No further speakers.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Move to approve?
All right, have a motion to approve
I'll second.
and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
H4, pulled by the public.
Yes, I have one speaker, Kathleen Cheers.
Good evening. I applaud the district's actions in providing this resource for students residing in National City. It serves an example of Sweetwater's commitment to equity. This will indeed alleviate the stresses of traveling out of the city, as well as assist in students' needs to juggle academic hours and athletic hours as they adjust to new start times this year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a
H4.
motion. And I'll second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
H5,
Yes, I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
As we know, each student with an IEP has a legal right to receive the educational services described in their IEP. Where I find it unfortunate is that rather than put more money behind special services, teachers, aides, counselors, psychologists, therapists, we end up spending large sums of money to send students to programs outside of our district. At some point, rather than forcing someone to show the need for a position, justify the spending cost, the district should look at just the list of 70 students we couldn't serve, because that right there shows a justification. I can tell you right now, I work at several schools that refer out to NPSs, and if we put some more money behind adequately staffing them with teachers, counselors, psychologists, aides, we might be able to service those students better.
thank you.
No further speakers.
Questions or comments from the board? All right, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
K1, pulled by the public.
Yes, I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
These are our $235,000 in 1 month on consultant agreements, all requested by the Equity, Culture, and Support Services. Most of the agreements state something to the effect of expertise does not exist in the district. Again, when and how are we evaluating the effectiveness of these investments? So far this evening, what I've learned and what we've established is that we don't have expert coaches and mentors for administrators. We don't have appropriate special services to serve our SPED students. We aren't really providing professional growth as described in LCAP for counselors. We don't have internet. And now we don't have staff with expertise in equity and culture proficiency and advocacy or designing safe, empowering events for LGBTQ. What do we have? I mean, other than yet again, someone who oversees the consultants. It sounds like we have a lot of folks being paid big dollars to do overseeing of outsourcing. $235,000 is a lot of money combined with the salary and benefits of chief in equity and culture who, according to the agreements, is an expert. My question is, what happens when the infamous 23-24 cliff comes, which I hear is no longer a cliff, but more like a small hill or something that we're going down? But what happens when that comes into play and the district starts saying that we're poor again and we have to do layoffs because there's no money to keep all the staff? I ask you, are the first cuts that we see going to be the luxury cost of all of these experts? Because when I look at $235,000, what I see is roughly 3 first-year counselors with benefits, or even 4 first-year teachers with benefits. Since we've established that we don't have experts in the field, what are we doing to ensure the folks that who should be learning from these trainings, who oversee this department, will be able to implement all of these programs when we can't afford these consultants and luxuries? Or better yet, why didn't we just hire the right person with the right skills the first time?
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right, questions or comments from the board? All right, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion
I will second.
and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
K7, moved by the public and staff.
I believe we'll have staff presentation first.
Dr. Aguirre?
Thank you, President Solis. For this item, we're bringing back information regarding to the 45-day budget update. So I'll ask Dr. Salkel to provide that update. Dr. Salkel.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. And good evening, President Solis, Board Trustees, and Dr. Aguirre again, and Cabinet and community. What we're bringing forward this evening, let's see if that works. Oops, I went too fast. Oh, where'd that go? Sorry, it takes a second. So we're bringing forward an informational report on what's known as the 45-day budget revision. What it reflects is the final enacted budget back in June. The governor signed the budget on June 27th, so we have 45 days from that date to bring forward to the board any key changes. What you'll see on subsequent slides is, again, reflective of all the advocacy efforts that we did collectively with a lot of our partners, and some positive outcomes. A lot of it is around the revenue side of things, but also some new grants. And so there is no requirement with the 45-day budget to bring a comprehensive standardized account code structure report to you. So it's just, again, a more informational item. And a lot of this information that we have here on the subsequent slides are estimates. We are still awaiting the final allocations from the CDE, and we're also awaiting the final calculator for the local control funding formula. We actually worked very closely with the county office on some of the parameters. So again, they're estimates. We will incorporate all the final numbers into our first interim, but again, it gives us an opportunity to plan and bring forward to the board specific plans, particularly on the grants. This table here reflects the changes over that reporting cycle that we started back in January, then in May, which incorporated into our budget adoption, and then the final enacted budget. You can see that one of the significant increases was around LCFF funding. Again, there's that change there. We went from 6.1 billion, which was what we incorporated for at least the district's portion of it, to now at the state level, it's 8.9 billion. What you see are the changes, what was then the negotiations that were done at the state level with the legislature is around these block grants. We had built in about $49 million of a block grant at the time that we did budget adoption. That amount is still the same, which is the learning recovery, which has turned into the learning recovery block grant. But now there's this new discretionary. That for the district's about another $21 million. So that's what you'll see the change being reflected. However, these two block grants do come with specific criteria on how we can use the dollars. So that it is very unique. There's also some reporting requirements as well, and some plans that will be brought forward to the board. So you can see the changes there that were kind of reallocated at the state level. This here just highlights the LCFF funding formula, specifically what that change was. You see in the middle that 6.28. The district had a factor of about 3%, so that differential is what was the additional now in revenue that we're reflecting. And all these other subsequent slides are just reemphasizing the things that the district had already incorporated into the budget adoption in June, but ties back to the advocacy efforts around the average daily attendance loss, the loss mitigation, just in general, what we experienced this past year, part of that 3-year rolling average, and then the relief number, kind of going back to 1920 as the basis. So again, these were things we already had incorporated back in June. And here's the Learning Recovery Block Grant. As you can see to the right, this will require some reporting done at certain milestones in 2024 and 2027. These are dollars that are intended to be used through the years 27, 28. We just received the specific resource codes from the state on Friday. So this will have a specific identifier where the dollars are to be added to and tracked accordingly for those purposes. And this grant, along with this next one, again, here's just a graph of what the dollars are intended to be used for. This next one, the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant. This one, too, has a deadline of its own. It goes through 25-26. And unlike the reporting requirements, like on the other grant, this one has a specific plan that needs to be brought forward. So these two will be working over the course of the next few weeks with Dr. Aguirre and Cabinet to develop a plan for each one to then bring forward to you in the upcoming board meetings. And again, this just displays what the intended uses are of those funds. The other item, there were additional funds allocated to special education. At this point, what we're presenting to the board, we don't have those numbers. We are working with the SELPA to get that data. So hopefully we'll have that obviously in the next few weeks and to incorporate that into first interim. What this will go towards is our special ed program. And if there's, with the increased revenues, will help the contribution from the general fund, it'll minimize it a little bit. Okay, and so with that background, what it translates into the numbers, what you can see us kind of doing the side-by-side of adopted budget and this 45-day revision, that first line item for local control funding formula. That's a little over $13 million. And that is now an ongoing commitment, again, at the state level. So you'll see that in the next slide. We typically don't bring multi-years, but we'll highlight it on the next slide. So it is an ongoing increase over the next few years. The state line item, what's reflected there is the $21 million of that arts and music and instructional materials grant. And then as we work on the plan, there's a corresponding, you can see under books and supplies, so we've reflected the increase of the revenues, but also the corresponding expenditure until we work through those specific details. The other change that was, again, benefit from on the revenue side of it is the lottery dollar amounts. You can see to the left of that slide, slightly went up as well. So we've incorporated those changes onto the revenue and expense. So bottom line, again, that's the bottom line impact. Those puts and takes, as I say, kind of with those changes. And what I'm just highlighting here on this next slide is just highlighting in green that those projected numbers for revenue are obviously going to go up because local control funding formula is going to be increased for those respective years as well. And with that, if there are any questions.
Questions or comments from the board?
Would you like to hear the public speaker first?
Oh, yes, please, thank you.
I have one speaker, Julie Walker.
Board President Solis, members of the board, Dr. Selkel, Dr. Aguirre, and Cabinet. Wow, I have never seen this. I've been an educator 37 years. We've never been this flush. There is so many funds, and we need it so badly in our classrooms, in our sites, and at our various departments. This is a point in time. This is a report that has put things into areas. It is not what we're going to be spending money on. We're not going to buy thousands and millions of dollars of textbooks. There's a big target to the arts and music, which we need to do because that's life-giving to our students. We need to talk to our students, our parents, all of our stakeholders. What are their needs? Make it site-specific. What we need at Southwest Middle is not the same as what we need at Sweetwater High School. Students have needs, and we need to focus on those. We need to have some listening tours by you, by staff, whoever, but we need to hear what these parents, these students are seeing. We need to use multiple ways to collect the information and requests, and you need to listen to your teachers. If we're going to be buying instructional materials, it needs to be at the PLC level. Let them say what they need, because I don't have the same needs as my site as another teacher across the district in another subject areas. There's a big ending balance here, but I'm hoping that we get this money spent for the students who need these things. I hear it's a cabinet plan, but I'm hoping that the input is not just cabinet. I have respect for my colleagues, but we have not lived through the classroom and COVID. And that is a totally different experience, and we need to honor that. There's a lot of really neat things coming along. We are looking at community schools and doing the planning grant. And we do have someone from CTA coming in and sharing their vision. So if you could get with Dr. Aguirre, that's going to be August 17th from 11 to 1. And all board members and any cabinet, and I'll be bringing some SEA members, but we will have also Rosie Martinez from CVE, most definitely, and possibly Kyle Weinberg helping David Partida do the presentation. So leaving that open, because community schools is another thing we can support with this money and other grant money. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right, questions or comments from the board? Okay. All right. So it's a report, so we're good. We'll move on. L1.
I have one speaker, Michelle Beal.
For the past few months, SCGA has personally monitored the allocations and placement of all counselors in the district to include summer school staffing and counselor movement as it pertains to the executed MOU dated April 13th, 2022. We've always been honest and forthcoming with any requested information. We always come with a reasonable solution in hand, and we've done so without the assistance of any consultant subs or anything like Mr. Singh or Mr. Tower. And we go out of our way to support and communicate agreed upon items with our members. In return, all we ask is to be treated and respected in continued communication. For the most part, our items are fairly simple to resolve. However, things that should be resolved fairly easily usually result in about 25 or so emails and too many phone calls to count. Not necessarily an effective use of time. Fortunately, SCGA has a very strong team committed to staffing oversight. Yes, it has been a rough start to the year, but Ms. Pedroza, we are committed and we are optimistic that moving forward, our relationship with human resources can continue to improve. That's our commitment. We hope it's yours. On another note, yet another new expense, 2 additional staff, Singh and Tower, to assist human resources with school staffing. This used to be something done internally. Again, just the question, is there a reason why we're outsourcing these things now? I've reviewed previous board items and I can't find where we brought them forward for discussion, but I'm just curious as to why we continue to outsource things. In looking at how much we are spending in outsourcing services, it begs the question for all the folks outsourcing their work. What are we really paying those people to do, other than providing oversight of the outsourcing? How can I outsource my work and still get full-time pay? Let me close this evening's comments by reiterating my earlier statement. When governmental agencies have reckless spending habits, students ultimately receive less services. So with that, that is my last comment for the night. I don't have the luxury of outsourcing my work, so I have to go home because it's a school night.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right, questions or comments from the board on L1?
Mr. Tarantino.
Oh, Mr. Tarantino, I'm sorry, yeah, you pulled it, Mr. Tarantino, I apologize.
Yeah, I had pulled it. I'm looking at, under the certificated, I need an explanation of separation/temporary. I'm reading it as temporary separations, and I'm not familiar with that term. I could be interpreting it wrong, but could Ms.
Dr. Aguirre?
Pedrosa or somebody provide some insight into that?
Dr. Aguirre, go ahead.
Thank you, President Solis. Ms. Pedrosa, can you please share some more information and clarification on that item?
Certainly, thank you. It is actually separations of temporary employees, so those teachers or staff members who had a one-year contract. Prior to that, there's also a listing of employment of temporary employees, and what you'll notice is many, over 30 of those teachers are already back in the classroom.
Okay.
For another year of temporary service.
Okay, I read it wrong. I inverted it.
I appreciate the question.
I was thinking, what's a temporary separation? They coming back or what? Thank you
In
for the
this case,
clarification.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Any other questions or comments?
So moved.
Have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And a second.
I'll second it.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. And moving on to M2.
M2, I have two speakers. Kathleen Cheers?
Thank you, Mr. Solis. Page 1, the backup material states the purpose of this expenditure is to provide the board with the information. If that is the sole purpose, I would recommend you wait until you have a plan or proposal and have presented said plan to the taxpaying community for input prior to spending these tax dollars. That is, unless you already have a plan and are not bringing it forward to the community for their weigh-in. Number 2, page 1. Will the contaminated soil be a factor in the Fifth Avenue appraisal? The buried gas tanks have surely leaked into the soil of the Fifth Avenue property and surrounding properties. Based on attachment C1, page 4, item A, the zoning/land use indicate homes, condos, apartments would be the obvious use by any potential developer. Will we be responsible for the removal and abatement of the contaminated soil? Number 3, page 1, attachment C1, page 4, item D, 4th column. Description further indicates there is some potential unknown to the taxpayers plan since, and I quote, abandonment of part of Arizona Street would increase size by 1 acre. Number 4, am I to assume we have finally learned from the errors of the past and all school sites named in this agenda item will be included admin, coaches, custodian, ASB, parents, and community in the planning of these projects? Undoubtedly, you are sick to the point of nauseam of hearing about Montgomery High's Project 2, managed by the County Office of Ed. Project manager Mike Nichols stated, mantra, felt it was imperative to include all stakeholders in the planning to ensure needs were identified on the forefront of the planning versus change orders on the back end. I raise this concern based on agenda item M3, page 1, items 2, 1, and 4. These are small examples of what could have been addressed in the planning. In closing, for years I've attempted to share what the Montgomery community benefited from, best practices on large school site projects, led and shared by Mr. Nichols of the County Board of Ed, a man of the highest integrity with the highest of credentials. As he often shared, including all in the planning offers many benefits. Respectfully, if you would at least consider including stakeholders in the planning, you might just find it serves you well as it pertains to wanting the community to believe they play an important role in the decision-making, as well as your employees. Make them part of it, other than funding via tax dollars. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nick Marinovich? He had indicated that he was hanging up, but he's still on the line, but he had said he was withdrawing, so perhaps he did leave.
Okay. If he comes on, we'll give him a chance. Thank you. Dr. Aguirre, if you could.
Thank you, President Solis. I'll ask Ms. Quirk to provide a description of some of the community engagement and public engagement that her department is currently planning at this point. Ms. Quirk?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you. So I can't see that board up there right now from this angle, so I'm going to assume that we're talking about the design for the stadiums. Okay. So tonight, the approvals would be for Lord Architecture for the design elements for the 4 remaining stadiums. Once this gets approved, then our next action is at the end of this month. By the end of this month, for all 4 of those locations, we will have 2 rounds of meetings. One is an internal to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row with all the previous work that we've been doing on soil surveying, site utility surveying, et cetera, in preparation of site meetings, initial kickoff design meetings at each one of those sites with their administration teams and with their athletic directors for a high level. We are trying to make sure we are maintaining equity with elements within the design that we're seeing reflective of the Bonita Vista and that we do see at many of our other campuses. We're doing that while we're also trying to manage what we all know to be incredibly steep and rising costs. And then as soon as we have that initial meeting with the design team and with the school sites, that will really allow us to see our future forward timeline, and we will start promoting all of that with the communities, sharing out the design elements. I mean, their fields, their stadiums, it's pretty standard stuff. But that's just the initial piece. And then if, depending on the conversations, if there's opportunities, we'll certainly be doing student engagements, informing the students so they can see what's coming to them and the respective communities with some of the other commitments that we've made as we continue to move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Quirk. Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for, I will second it.
I have a motion and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, 03, pulled by Mr. Segura.
Yes, I'm just speaking in support of this, of the component of it, which is the bus electrification part of it. I know we had the students speak to us earlier today. It might have been some of those same students who spoke to us not too long ago about, renewable energy and just the sustainability as a district. And I think this lines up exactly with that. I'm just real excited that this is going to happen. And, many of the students and myself, are always trying to, we do a lot of, our district has a large carbon footprint, and just doing the, this is a good part, this is a good way to address that and reduce our footprint, as well as what they were mentioning about the food, redirecting the food and those things. I think it's just a great start. And I know it said bus, and I think it says, just say bus and van, transportation van. So so this would be able to lead us to when we start replacing vehicles, that those could be electric in nature as well, right? So I think this is really great. And I know with the recent bill that the Senate passed, that's going to go through the House and the President will sign, that has a lot of addressing climate change. So that's a huge thing. And I think that's so important. And maybe there's some funding in there for stuff, and as well as the state. So I'm just very excited to see this come through. The only thing I would ask is that when we get to the point where we're going to build the charging stations, that we include the certification that's called the EVITP, which is the Electrical Vehicle Certification Training Program, EVITP. And I think I have it. I've read it, and it's a certification that the contractors will have to do some additional training, as well as the electricians and the people who do the work. So it's an additional certification that it's important, I think, that's included in there when we get to that point of that. And I can send that to you, Dr. Aguirre, when I find it on my computer. But that's all I have to say around this. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segura. Dr. Aguirre?
Thank you, President Solis. Definitely, Trustee Segura, if you can share that information. We want to make sure that, first and foremost, as we make this transition, we continue to focus on safety. There's a huge amount of electricity that all of our staff is going to be engaging with, so make sure that whether it's our mechanics or our drivers, that they understand what they're working with. So if you can send that over, we want to make sure our employees are as trained as possible. That's something that, again, whether it's on the teaching side and instruction or whether it's on the bus side, we want to make sure we're providing professional development opportunities to all of our staff. That's definitely a focus for us. So you can share that with us. And also, this is part of a conversation that did begin a little over a year ago. The board adopted a resolution to support student advocacy that came forward in terms of addressing some of the climate issues and really looking at ways where we could reduce our footprint. So as grants are becoming available now, as you mentioned, we look forward to seeing what's in that final bill that's currently approved by the Senate that sounds like will include significant funding to address climate change. We look forward to seeing what's in that and see if there's any funding that could support that transition to reduce our carbon footprint. So definitely looking forward to that.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion for approval.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Carriaga?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, with that, I think we're done. Meeting adjourned. Have a great evening.